Hi, it's Kiffin Low Bates here, and Paul F. Dowding asked me a question about block times and Ethereum and uncle blocks. And in fact, he asked me a whole bunch of questions, but they all relate to the same topic. So I thought I would tackle his question today. It's a bit of a technical one, but I won't go into too much technical detail. So the first part of his question is, how can blockchains like Ethereum process blocks in a matter of seconds? And it turns out that the Ethereum block time is about 13 to 14 seconds. It's meant to be 15, but as long as the hash rate remains the same or goes slightly higher over time, you can expect the average block time to be slightly below the target level. So Bitcoin has a block target level of 10 minutes, and Ethereum, I think, is set at 15 seconds. And at the moment, Ethereum is generating blocks at a rate somewhere between 13 and 14 seconds. Now, back in September 2017, I published a paper on blockchain and the cap theorem. I can't remember the title of it off the top of my head, but I'll put a link to it in this video, because halfway through the paper I do a calculation where I model the traveling of transactions through a peer-to-peer network using a Poisson process, and I worked out, given the statistics for the internet, that on average it takes about 8 seconds for a transaction, and that would include a newly generated block, because that is a form of a transaction, arriving at all the nodes in the peer-to-peer network. And in fact, I calculated that Tmax, the expected maximum time, is around about 15 or 16 seconds. So I suspect maybe the Ethereum team used an empirical approach and tried an experiment to see how long it would take for messages to propagate across the whole network, or maybe they did the same calculation, I don't know. But anyway, I find it highly unlikely that the numbers for Ethereum and the numbers I calculated match up so neatly, and I hadn't even thought about the fact that they match up until Paul asked his question. But I'm guessing that that's kind of the theoretical best rate that you can have in our current networks. Having a block time of 15 seconds, or target block time of 15 seconds, is about the best you can go for. So as I said, the paper will be linked to in the comments. Next question that Paul asked was about uncles. So I need to explain here. In blockchains where you have proof of work, all the miners are mining away to try and find the next block. And in Bitcoin, the first one to announce it and send it over the network and get the majority of other miners to accept that block is the one that gets added to the chain. And that means, firstly, that any proof of work that's been done, i.e. the vast majority of the work that is done, is ultimately thrown away, although the fact that it's been done is what secures the network. Now, two nodes may find the next candidate block at roughly the same time, and in fact you may actually find a block before somebody else, but if their block propagates around the network quicker than yours, then your block will get dropped. And in Bitcoin, it is just dropped, it's forgotten about. But in Ethereum, it is what is called an uncle block, and it is actually added to the chain as evidence that the work has gone into securing the network. Now, I haven't checked this out, but my suspicion is that if you get two forks, then it's not just the fork that has the most blocks in it that wins out over the fork that doesn't. I imagine that the uncles contribute to the strength of a fork. So two equally long forks, where one has more uncles than the other, I would imagine that one is the one that will win out according to the protocol, but I'd need to go and check that. However, I suspect it seems to make sense, and I hadn't thought about what the role of uncles is, but that's the first conclusion that I come to. So Paul then asked, would mining uncles be a viable strategy? And my take on that is no. Once you detect that somebody else has successfully mined a block, it's the same effort for you to continue mining your block, or you can switch to trying finding the next block at the for the tip of the chain. And because you get a transaction fee, you get the mining fee rather for mining the actual canonical next block, as well as a block reward, I don't think it makes sense to mine uncles. You make more profit. If the block reward for an uncle is substantially higher than the block reward for the next block in the chain, then it would make sense to continue mining and trying to find an uncle, because then you would make more profit. So I can't see the Ethereum devs setting up the protocol in such a way that mining uncles is more profitable than mining the next block in the chain. So I think that covers all the things that you asked, Paul. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you all in the next video soon. Bye for now.